Alright, I want to do two days worth just because this day was very channel-y, really nothing was going on. So we're going to do the trades of the day from for the 9th and the 10th. If you remember last video we did of the 8th, which was like from here to the next blue line. I believe we started it from like 6 in the morning or something like that, just because we really wanted to aggressively take a look at this one. But yeah, our macro trend is we kind of topped out up here, and then we've been kind of pushing downward, very sharply, very strong. So let's start with the 9th, and we're doing this on the 15-minute time frame. Is that visible? Yes, it is. We're doing this on the 15-minute time frame, and yeah, let's just start. So in the last one, if you remember correctly, we were kind of talking about there's a little bit of a channel here. Realistically, it's much easier to mark the channel down here. And then we get what ends up being a channel for most of the day. So I'm going to delete that for now, just because we don't know at this point, right? So in this case, we have a strong bounce here that breaks the trend line, right? Breaks out of the channel, and then we get another push to the low, and we get this double bottom. This is a trap bar. The reason I think it's a trap bar is because we kind of do have this somewhat established area now of trading range, right? We bounced here, we pushed it back up to this level, and then we came back down here, and we've bounced from here again. So as much as this is a double bottom, it's also now a potential trading range, and this bar closes very close to the high. So your first profit target, if you took a long here, is going to be right here, and your stop is going to be all the way down here. So it ends up being like okay if you're going to put your stop down here and ride it for the rest of the day from here. But I think that this is probably not a good buy. Excuse me, this is probably not a great place to buy, although it ends up getting you a little bit of a move. And the other thing about this is, if we notice from the low to the high of the day, very, very, very small. Really not a lot going on. So we are going to look at this as if it was a fatter channel, that maybe you could get like a percentage here. Um, and in that case, I guess this candle does end up working out okay, because we really never see this low again. But I think that when I put this trappy arrow here, I mean to say that it's kind of not a great buy to have to buy the top of this. If you bought down here, it's better. If you wanted to buy above the prior bar, this bar is pretty big, so your entry is like here anyway. So I just don't think this is the best bar to be entering on, but it seems to be okay in the sense of you're getting a spike and then a channel, right? And then that channel, once we start building this channel here, I think it becomes easier to just wait for a pullback to the channel origin, because we really should be getting that sometime soon. And this ends up actually being if this is going to be this type of arrow, this should also probably be that type of arrow. But basically, this is the high, right? We have one push up and a second leg up off of, again, super, super strong dump here. And really strong reversal bar here at the top, following kind of like, it's hard to see on this chart, but we could probably find a way to make sense of 1, 2, 3 pushes, or 1, 2, 3 pushes to the high kind of thing. We could probably even draw this in such a way that we get a overshoot here, and then we're back in right immediately to the bottom of the channel, which makes you feel like it's not a great trade, because you're now shorting support. So actually, yeah, I'm going to change this to, because I don't actually like it. I don't think it would be something I would really be feeling comfortable to take, but it ends up resulting in kind of some downward push, attempting to take it back to the channel origin. We do get back to the channel origin on this bar, and this bar ends up being, I think, a trap, because it looks very strong, but again, it's in a trading range, and it's now at the top of the trading range, so you really can't be buying above this. And this is really barbed wire. If we look at it on a higher time frame, this is just all going to be barbed wire. So this ends up being not a great trade. although like we said, this is in fact a kind of a channel throughout the whole day. So buying towards the low of the channel is ultimately going to be a good play, but if you're going to buy this bar here thinking that we're going to pump and then you're going to have to put your stop underneath this bar, your stop is going to get run. So I don't think this is a good entry at all. I think this is a horrible trade. It ends up kind of going to a couple legs up, kind of almost like a wedge looking thing here, and then we break out from that wedge and we put in 2 legs down. I think that this is also not a good short, just because the same reason we kind of been in this horizontal range for a while. We are shooting off of the top of the range, but this ends up being really far down. I think the better short is probably on this bar, just because, like we said, we have a, where's the triangle? Bit of a wedge here. We break that wedge with this sharp candle to the downside. So I guess this is the trade, and this will take you all the way down here. But then the thing is, like, we don't really feel like shorting this because the time now has been so much, right? Let's if we're gonna call this our channel here, and we're hoping and thinking that we're gonna kind of do this and then continue to the downside, I think the time here is a problem, because this is now to this point right here, 14.5 hours. And if we go this way, 14.5 hours, it is all the way up here. So we did all of this in 14.5 hours, and then from here to here, 14.5 hours is just this. I think, if we're going to be really bearish, we probably should have been a little bit more bearish instead of allowing like all of this trading range and sideways activity to happen. So I think it makes a lot more sense that this is going to be a buy than a sell underneath this level, right? So we break down through this level, and then because we're expecting it to be bought up more than we are expecting it to be sold off, not too many entrants into the short. I mean, this is obviously a big trap. Like, we have this little channel here, but this is showing a little bit of strength to try and take it back up, meaning bulls are not convinced that we are going to be pushing down farther, and certainly we're not convinced that we're going to break these lows, this double bottom here, which let me mark as well. This double bottom here, we're not convinced that we're going to break below this double bottom, and if we do, we're pretty sure that the buyback should occur. So we get this really strong bar down. We get this kind of pretty good follow through, but a lot of wicks on the bottom side indicating some sort of buy pressure. And then this final one that goes through the bottom. But now this bar, and this bar has a lot of overlap where the wicks are in particular, right? So not the best, not the most convincing bar. And then we end up getting this strong buyback bar here, and this is the bar. This is the bar. This is the bar to buy. I think out of all the bars on the chart so far, this is the bar that we want to buy, because, like we said, 3 overlapping bars. We get this really strong 4th overlapping bar. Is there any? And this has the nice volume here, strongest volume that we've had since our last time getting into this buy zone area territory. So a lot of buying strength, a lot of buying volume, and that just pushes us back up to this level where we have a double top here. And I think that's what ends up making this short feel like it's considerable, that we might be double topping here and then pushing back down. But I think at this point, we've had this bounce here. We came back after eons and then bounced again. It's more likely that we're going to go up than it is that we're going to just have this bounce roll over and then go down for more. But the stop is, of course, clear. I mean, we have a stop here, but probably more realistically, the stop is underneath the double bottom. And we have this strong spike phase here. Maybe you can call this a channel. It's really quick and tight. It's more likely that this is, a spike phase, and then maybe kind of like a channel like this, but kind kind of hard to even just say that it's a channel. It's more just like a spike, and then one push down. We try and push up again, gets rejected, but then we end up making a higher low, pushing up for a third time, trying to take this third shot up. Ends up being a double top here, which also happens to double top with this top here. And then we get this decently strong reversal bar. But the reason that I think it's not good is because, again, the macro situation of we're probably more likely to be looking for longs than looking for shorts. So there just aren't too many shorts that kind of pack in here. And while we do have this trend, excuse me, that's hoping to go higher, we just kind of break through that, but we come back to this low, which is somewhat of a, I suppose, somewhat of a support zone, just because we kind of had a little bit of overlap here. We had this kind of, I wouldn't really call this an inside bar. This is really more of an inside bar, but this is really more of an ayeee, which is what kind of, I think, sets up this conclusion here. And then we have this teeny small bar here that breaks up and then closes outside down. This is kind of the first time that you think, oh yeah, this might be, the up move might be cooked. We might be pushing down, but then we get this good, decent follow through here and then great follow through here. But this ends up being 1-2 pushes up on the follow through. That's a pretty easy sell off. I mean, that's exhaustive, right? So we end up getting the sell off here, but it bounces right here, and then this ends up being the next buy. I think this is a really tough buy to make. I don't really see how I would be taking it unless I was really confident on the bounce off of this that I'm like, we're gonna keep pushing higher. I would probably have to see something on a higher time frame that I really like, because otherwise this is just kind of like, I think that the time horizon is too long here, and so I'm buying this low here. Time horizon is too long, so I'm buying this test of the low, and then I'm just going to keep holding the test of the low and trying to add whenever it makes sense. This is the time where I guess it kind of makes sense, but it's tough, man. This one is a tough one to take because they're really two small bars. But then you get the strong push up here. I guess if you miss this, which I'm sure you miss, I'm sure you're missing it all the time, and that's why this bar ends up being so strong, because everybody misses this and they're just chasing this whole time. You probably get the opportunity to here, and the way that you have to recognize this one, because it's not like a high one or a high two. I mean, like, if this is our first push up, this is our high one, right? And then it ends up pushing up here, and then breaks down. So this is your high two. That's why it's the quote unquote easy trade. But of course it's a difficult trade because of the structure. And the thing that you like the most about this is that you hope that this is like a trading range possibly, but you don't know that yet. You don't really have any sort of confirmation or indication that this is a trading range. And so that's why I think this one ends up being really tough to buy. But then when we get this and we take another push up here, 1, 2, 3 pushes into the high, into the ceiling, get a rejection, off of this kind of spike and channel-ish situation. But this is kind of a barbed wire. Because this is kind of a barbed wire, we're not super convinced that the sell-off is real. And like I said, we've been kind of doing this. So do we really expect it to like kind of just BART down here? I want to say no. So we're kind of at the point where you are almost willing to buy above everything, and you kind of had this be your high one, following this, right? This broke above, but then it goes outside down. So then this ends up being the high two. So you can just buy above this high two, even though it's not really a high two like that, but it's decent enough. And you know what? This ends up actually being 14 minutes. So I'm going to stop this one here. This is just going to be for the 9th. And then I'm just going to start straight up and do a new one for the 10th. So thanks for watching this one.